Hey everybody, welcome to Sid's Little Corner of the Internet. We've got another Transformers review coming your way. This time around we're going to be taking a look at the Transformers Studios Series number 110 Voyager class Shockwave. This is Shockwave as we saw him in that 2018 Bumblebee movie. So as we always do, let's go ahead and bring that packaging in first and take a nice close look at that. We'll start right up here at the top. You see is from the Bumblebee movie. There is some nice artwork for you. Number 110 Shockwave. Over here on the side, we have Shockwave. On the back, we have big screen inspired. It is the scene where Cybertron falls. First 3 minutes of the movie, basically. He converts at 22 steps. Shockwave commands the Seekers to destroy the launch pad. And down here you have all your warnings, and you have your sad baby, and the baby is sad because he saw the destruction of Cybertron, and that's a really traumatic thing for babies. Over here, you have a close-up of Shockwave's beautiful face and a little bit of his chest. He's a Voyager class. Down here, you have all this verbiage if you care to read it. Behold, laid out here before you is everything that came inside that packaging with Shockwave, and we'll start right over here with your little sheet of warnings, and over here is your book of instructions, and that leaves you with the two items you see here in front of Shockwave, and they do work in tandem. So just a real quick review here. We have the hose of power, which transfers the energy from one part of Shockwave to the other part, to his gun, basically. So this is a soft plastic, kind of a rubbery feel to it. It's got a little bit of texturing on there, nothing amazing. And then you've got two identical plugs right there. And then, of course, you got the big gun. So this is pretty cool. I don't have much of a problem with it. I rather enjoy it. I think it's got a good amount of detail. So you can see there it is from the left side, from the right side, from the top, and from underneath. And it just plugs into his hand using this little tab right there, or his forearm technically. So just right on the forearm, you just tab it in, and you're good to go. So you do have the ability, you can change this so you can see that this moves right here. So you've got the ability to, I guess if you want to do that, you can. But it's mostly for this double hinge that's inside of there where you can bring that out and extend that gun so you've got a little bit more length on it if you want to do that, or you can just keep it retracted on that double hinge as such. Let's go ahead and bring Shockwave in for his close-up. We will start as we always do with that head, and yeah, that's a Shockwave head. He's a big old Cyclops. And I would say overall for this figure, the sculpt work is great. Could have used a few more paint applications. I'm not going to go too crazy about that. I'm just making that general point right now before we start. But the sculpt work, as far as that goes, looks pretty good. He's got really nice antenna on those heads. And then he's got these shoulder pylon things, whatever you want to call them. I think they're a really good look. Could have used a little bit of paint up here. Coming on down to the chest, looks good. You do have kind of that brushed battle damage look right there, which is nice. And then coming on down to those abs, looking good. Again, sculpt work abounds on this guy, so definitely always something to look at no matter where you're looking on this guy. So I do appreciate that. Those knees, looking good. Lower legs are a little less busy than the rest of the body, but I do like the purple that they used. Would have liked to have seen a little bit more paint, maybe even right here. Insides of the legs, you can see not a lot of hollow areas there. You do have this spot right there. But for the most part, I think he comes together pretty good. Looking at those feet, not a lot to write home about, but definitely some good sculpt work on there. And then starting our climb up the side of his leg, you can see just all kinds of good stuff in that knee assembly area right there. As always, more paint would have been appreciated, but lots and lots of detail right there. Nice and solid through this area right there, so you can't see through him. I do appreciate that. Coming up here to the arms, not a lot going on in the joint area itself, but you can see the side of the arm looks really good. A little bit more of that battle-worn paint. And you do get some splashes of color here, so a little bit of copper right there, a little bit of copper right up there. So that's always appreciated. Inside of the arm is not really much. It's just a little bit of mechanical detail, and then your track right there. And then he's got tiny hands to his body. I'm just going to say it. I just think in proportion to everything else, he's got tiny little hands, but he makes up for it with a big gun. So, you know, read into that whatever you want, as Darwin would. Here he is from the side. So no backpack to speak of whatsoever. Really slim figure, so that works out really well as far as I'm concerned. Now we turn him around to the back, and you can see some of his shortcomings. This is just where all the screws are at. You know, screws, hollow areas, whatever you want to see in a bad way, you're probably going to find it back here. So to be fair, not all of these are just hollow areas to save weight. You've got these two holes right here actually used for the hose for the fusion cannon. And then, of course, you do have a port right here for a flight stand if you want to use it. Everything else, I can't really give you any excuses for. So you do have some hollow areas back here, hollow areas in the legs. But he's not awful. Definitely not the worst figure that I've ever seen. And let's be honest, most people are not going to display their figure from the back. But yeah, taking a look at him overall here, I think this is a really cool looking Shockwave. Nice, accurate representation of what we saw in the movie. And definitely a really good shelf presence. So now let's go ahead and talk about articulation. And we will start up here with the head. You're not going to get much. There is no head tilt. There is no up or down. You only get 360 degrees there. Not a lot to cover. A little bit of slop in there, but it's not meant to actually give him up down. So you get what you get. He can look left and right and go all the way around. Coming over here to the shoulders, because of this, you do get a little bit of interference. I'd still rather have this because it looks cool. It doesn't completely hinder your range of motion, so you can bring him up that far at the shoulders, and you can go all the way around if you choose to do so. Coming down to the elbows, I'm going to get this out of the way first. So you can hyperextend him the wrong way one notch, so you get a little bit of backwards motion, and then bringing those elbows forward, you get almost 90 degrees right there. Now, there is no bicep rotation. You have forearm rotation, which is right there. Now, this is going to hinder you. Normally, whenever I display everything that comes inside the package, when I have him like this and I've got all the stuff laid out, I normally have these guys in a superhero pose, kind of Superman, hands on hips kind of thing. Can't do it with this guy. You just can't twist the arms that way. It's just not going to work. So you do experience a little bit of a hindrance here in trying to put this guy in certain poses because of the way these arms work. Should have had that bicep rotation instead of that rotation below the elbow, but it is what it is. Coming down here to the hands, you can rotate those hands all the way around if you choose to do so. And then at the waist, you get full 360 degrees at the waist. And then at the hips, you can spread those hips all the way out. Not quite a Shockwave Van Damme, but you do get full splits right there. And then coming down here, well, not coming down, kicking forward. You can kick forward that far before he runs into himself. You can kick backward that far before he runs into himself. And then thigh rotation, as far as that goes, take it all the way around. Have yourself a party. Just watch out for your interference right there. But you can take that all the way around, so there is no stopping you. You also have knee rotation, so just get buck wild if you want to. You can go full 360 there. At the knee itself, the knee bend, you're going to get just under 90 degrees on that knee bend. And then coming down to those feet, so you can bring those feet down that far before you run into this tank tread. You could cheat if you want a little bit and move this tank tread out of the way, and then you could get even deeper. This is meant for transformation, but in the right format, your foot only goes that far. And then bringing the foot forward, you get that. So you can get just a little bit of that Michael Jackson lean forward if you want to do that. And then the slightest bit of ankle tilt. So right here is that point of rotation. So your ankle tilt, you get a little bit out and a little bit in. So that's all you're going to get. At least it's there. It's just not a lot. So there you go. Michael Jackson forward tilt. He will hold it. So, hey, at least we can enjoy that. So now let's go ahead and talk about what you can do with those accessories, with that gun and with that hose. So we will bring these in. First thing I will show you is this is true ambidextrous design as far as the accessories go. So you've got a port right here. You've got a port right here. You can plug this into either side. Depends on which side you want his gun to be on, left hand, right hand, and then you just plug that in and then you're good to go. As far as mounting this, what I do, you can do what you want to do, but what I do is I get rid of the hand. I just open this up, slide the hand in, close that up. That way I don't have to worry about any interference. And then if you look on the inside here, you have this mount. So this is on a post. Right, this post is used for his alt mode, so you're going to collapse that up, and then you've got this tab right in there, and then on his forearm you will see you have a slot that corresponds to it, so it just becomes a matter of lining those up, which is not always the easiest thing depending on how much lighting you have, and I'm probably doing this off camera, but you just line those up, give that a squeeze, and then his gun has become one with him, and rotate that around. And then you just take the other end of that hose and plug it into one of these holes back here. Push it in, push it in. There you go. And then you have Shockwave holding his ginormous gun, and he can pew pew all day long. Now, you do have the ability to use blast effects if you want, so I'm not going to spend too much time celebrating it. You're just going to take that blast effect, plug it in, and then there you have Shockwave. Well, it barely holds. It's got the tiniest little bit of lip right there, and then Shockwave is blowing stuff up. So, yeah, sorry, Shockwave. It happens to everybody once you get to a certain age. There you go. Anyway, that being said, that is the accessories. There's not a whole lot more you're going to do with this guy. I mean, you have that, and you just got to be careful if you want to extend this in this mode, in the bot mode. Normally, I would extend it in the alt mode, so just be aware. I'm not going to put too much strain on those, but you can bring this out and extend that gun, and then if you can finagle it, you can have it reach, and then you can do something like that. I'm not going to waste our time right now doing that. So there you go. That is Shockwave and his accessories here. A little port right there. Feed it into your eye. Anyway, all right, let's move on and get this guy transformed into his tank mode. So the first thing that you're going to want to do to get Shockwave transformed, if you haven't already done so, is go ahead and remove his gun from his arm. Now you can do a couple of things here. Either you can leave it attached like this, just plugged in the back, and it'll dangle, it'll kind of get in your way, or you can do what I do and just completely remove it. And for the sake of this video, I am going to completely remove it just so it's easier to see what's going on. So once you have Shockwave like that, we can really get into the meat of all this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and collapse his hands first. So just give those a little push right there. Then I'm going to swing those hands in just like this, and then I'm going to collapse that up, and then that tucks those away nicely. Do the same thing over here and close that up. Then I'm going to turn him around 180 degrees, and I'm going to get this out of the way now. So you have these little tracks. You're going to pull these tracks out just like that, and then you're going to rotate those around 180 degrees and push them back in. So there's your after, there's your before. Do the same thing over here. Plug those in. Now I'm going to come over here. I'm going to get these arms out of the way. I'm going to do something now that you can do later if you want to do. I just do it now so that way I've got them locked into place. So these arms, you can see these little tabs right here and right here. And you'll notice that on the arms right there, you've got a little slot. So I'm going to angle those back. I'm going to tuck those away where I need them to be. And then I'm going to come down here to these legs. I'm going to lift these legs up, give him the splits just like that. And then you've got a point of rotation right here. So you're just going to collapse those legs like this. So now he's kind of in a squat style position. And after we've done that, what we're going to do is take this chest assembly right here and give this a pull. So I'm just going to grab on both sides right here, pull that. That's going to bring that chest assembly up, and then keep pulling because it's going to come out on a double hinge like that. And then now that you've got these legs spread out, you've got the room that you need to bring this down. And then as you're bringing this down, this piece is going to come up. This is where your gun's going to pop in. Before I bring this down, though, I do want to show you on these legs, you've got a couple of spots right here, that will correspond to these tabs right here on this piece that you're going to swing down. So as you bring this down, you're going to line that up, and you can see, bring those down and plug those in right there just like that. And then if you've done that, right here on the insides of the legs, you've got these little ports. You've got these pegs right there. So you're going to align those. So bring that back up and plug those in. Plug this one in. Make sure these are squeezed down and plugged in there. I'm going to flip him over, and then you can see on this little bottom piece of his ab, if you will, you've got a tab, and then you've got this slot right here. So you're going to bend this piece down and shove that in right there just like that. Now, this is getting pretty close to being done, believe it or not. So once you have it right here, you're just going to take these feet and you're going to bring those feet down just like that. They're going to tuck in right in between these tracks. So do the same thing over here. Bring that foot down. You don't have to bring the knee down like I just did. Make sure you've got everything lined up, and there is the front of the tank. All right, so coming over here to the back, now what you're going to need to do, you can tell from the orientation of these tracks, sorry for the edit guys, but as I was saying, you have these tracks right here, and then you can see on the backs of his arms, or the sides of his arms right there, you've got these tracks right here. So what you're going to need to do is you take this entire assembly right here, you've got this point of rotation right here in the middle, make sure you've got his head kind of straight, and then you're just simply going to grab this entire thing right here and you're going to turn it up, and then it stops. You know, there's nothing, it's just kind of a hard stop right there. There's a little bit of a click. Then you take his head, tuck his head in, just like this. Make sure he looks like that. And now what you can do is take these arms, I'm going to rotate those around so the tracks are oriented properly. And then you'll notice right here, you've got a tab and a slot. And then you're just going to bring this up kind of on that hyperextended back elbow and then lock those into place like that. So we'll do the same thing over here. So there's your track. Track needs to be on the bottom. And then you've got a tab and a slot. Bring that up and lock that into place. And then after you've done that, the last thing that we need to do is bring in our gun. If you left the gun attached, you don't need to bring it in, but I didn't leave mine attached. So you're going to take that gun, do two things to it. Number one, you're going to extend out this cannon. And then number two, you're going to take this post right there and bring that post down, orient it whichever way you want. You'll notice on this post that you've got this tab right there, so you're not going to get a lot of depth once you plug it in, but you do get enough, and then that allows you to rotate it and angle it and all that good stuff, right? So we're going to take that gun. You've got that hole right there. You've got your post right there. You're going to plug it in, and then there you have the cannon. So now it's just a matter of taking your hose and plugging it in back here, or the other side if you want him to be left-handed or right-handed. But there you go. That is Shockwave in his tank mode. And here he is on the turntable in all of his tank glory. I'll give this a couple of times to go around so you can get the full details unobstructed. But as you can see, I mean, it is a Cybertronian tank that doesn't necessarily have a match here on Earth, but I think it gets the job done. I think it's pretty cool. Really like the overall feel of this guy, the way with those purples and the blacks. Again, my biggest complaint is a little more paint would have been nice, a little more splash of colors. Something on the gun here would have been really helpful as well. But overall, I think he comes together really nicely. Between the two modes, the bot mode is still my favorite, but I think this is quite the admirable alt mode. We have seen a few iterations of Shockwave in his tank mode in the past, which we'll see in those comparisons, and I think this one stacks up pretty well to the rest of them as well. So now that we've given him a couple times to go around on the table, we'll go ahead and get that turntable out of the way, and we'll bring him in for his details. We will start, as we always do, with the front of the alt mode, and we'll just start with that gun. It's not something we haven't already seen before. All of this we have seen before, just in a different configuration, so we're not going to spend a lot of time on it. But you can see there's the feet. I don't know if I'm the biggest fan of just kind of this sharp angle right here. It kind of feels like something's missing, but it's not the worst thing ever. I'm all right with it. And then coming around from the side, there's the side view of that tank mode. Also feels like maybe they're missing a little something back here. Maybe a little bit of a filler would have been nice just because of that overall view right there. It just kind of feels like it's slightly lacking. I just don't know what. And then taking a look at him from the back, you can see a good amount of detail. I mean, again, this guy's interesting from every angle. Not the biggest fan of this super hollow area from this angle right here, but nobody's ever going to see it. You're never going to pick your or display your figure like this. I mean, it's always going to be where you can see the gun like that, which is fine. And then over here is the other side, just like the right-hand side. Oh no, look what I've done. And then here he is from the top. And here he is from the bottom. So it's a lot of Shockwave yoga, but it gets the job done, I think. And, you know, hey, he's a Cybertronian tank. He is a Decepticon. He can do whatever he wants. It doesn't have to be overly complicated. He just gets himself down, throws on some tracks, and puts out his big gun, and he just starts rolling. That's all he needs. He's Shockwave. So anyway, there we go. That is the details in the alt mode. So let's go ahead and jump into those comparisons. For our first comparison, here we see Shockwave hanging out with the younger, smaller version of himself. This is the Studio Series Core Class Shockwave from that Bumblebee movie. Moving on to our next comparison, this is Shockwave as we saw him from the Transformers Prime animated series. And for our final comparison, this is the Studio Series Shockwave, the version of him that we saw him in his murder tank mode from Transformers Dark of the Moon. That's going to do it for the alt mode comparison, so let's go ahead and get Shockwave transformed back into his bot mode. When we converted Shockwave from his bot mode to his tank mode, I took the gun off. What I'm going to do this time, just to show you that you can do it, is I'm going to leave the gun on or attached. It's annoying, it gets kind of dangly, but I'm going to show you that you can do it in this transformation. So the first thing we're going to do is go ahead and disconnect the gun, the post from that port right there. So just give that a little bit of a wiggle, take it off, and then I'm going to go ahead and collapse the gun in, just like that, and then I'm just going to let it dangle, I guess. All right, next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to take this entire assembly right here. I'm just going to leave everything as it is, and I'm just going to rotate this up, just like that, and then that's going to have a little bit of a soft click right there, and then I'm going to lift his head up out of his chest, and then I'm just going to leave everything up here as it is and focus on the lower area for now. So I'm going to flip him over. I'm going to grab this chest piece right here. I'm going to pull that out of that tabbed area right there, and then I'm going to bring it up nice and secure, just like that. And then I'm going to give it a little push with my fingers back here. Give it a little bit of, well, before I give it a little bit of a push, I'm going to disconnect these. That would be helpful, wouldn't it? Then I'm going to give it a little bit of a push right there, and then that's going to lift that up. And then I'm going to collapse all that in. You will see as you collapse it in, this piece is going to collapse with this piece. So I'm just going to give it a little assist with my thumb, and then I'm going to bring that up. That's going to close. It's going to get caught by these tabs right there into these hollow areas where his shoulders are. So just bring that up. You can't really do this wrong. Just give it up or pull it up, give it a push, and then you've got his chest assembly done. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come out here and I'm going to straighten his legs, and then I'm going to bring them down. Nothing to it. Straighten legs, bring them down. Then I'm going to turn my attention to his feet back here. So you've got these 2 feet, and you're just going to give them a push down, just like that. While you're back here, flip these around. This is really up to you. Do you want to leave them like this? Do you want to flip them around? The instructions say to flip them around, so I will. So lift these up on those posts, rotate those around 180 degrees, push them back down in. Do that on both sides, and you have his legs done. And now he's just a guy with his arms tucked behind his back. So all you got to do in this case, I'm going to do the left arm first because it's not going to have the gun attached. Just give that a pop. And then you're going to disconnect that tab right there. Then you can bring the arm forward and then pull these out. You will recall that you had these tabs and slots right there in the elbow area, but it's just a matter of they were like this, and then you pull them just like that. And then you see you've got his tank tread right here. Before we even rotate this, I'm just going to go ahead and open that up. I'm going to pull his hand out, and then I'm going to close that back up, and then give that a rotation right there, and then you've got his arm oriented as it should be. Like I said, this gun just dangles and gets in your way. It's kind of annoying. Disconnect right here, bring that forward, give this a pull, open up that hand, pull it out, close that up, rotate that, and then you've got his gun. So you can do a couple of things here. It is actually possible to keep the gun or to attach the gun onto his arm with his hand out. You just got to make sure this is perfectly aligned. And then you've got that little area right in here where you can tuck that hand away. So you can do something like that if you want to. The easiest thing, though, is to put that hand back in. So to attach that gun, I'm going to collapse this post. You've got this tab right there. That's going to correspond to this smaller slot right there. And then put that hand away. Close that up. Line these up. And push that in. And there you have Shockwave back in his robot mode. For our first bot mode comparison, here we see that Studio Series Shockwave next to his little brother. This is the Studio Series Core Class Shockwave from the Bumblebee movie. Next up is the Transformers Prime Shockwave, and forgive me, I do have to do this just because it's fun. Nice. Here we have a couple of Transformers Studio Series Shockwave bros just hanging out. Of course, Bumblebee movie over here, and then Dark of the Moon over here. That's going to do it for the bot mode comparison, so let's go ahead and get into those final thoughts. So there we have the Transformers Studio Series number 110, Shockwave as we saw him from the Bumblebee movie. And I got to tell you, I really like this figure. He's not without his flaws, but I think he has more positive than he has negative. So let's go ahead and just jump into it. And we'll start with the overall looks of the figure, that aesthetic that he brings. I will say right off the bat, this guy is loaded with details. Everywhere you look at this guy, he's got something to see. So plenty of molded detail, all kinds of really good stuff going on there. He needs more paint, though. I'm not even going to worry about the backside where he's got the hollow areas because nobody's really going to see him from that angle. But he does need more paint. There's just too much detail on this guy to just leave it alone. You've got a couple of splashes of kind of a copper color up here, which is nice, but he needs more than that. It really would have made him pop if he had more paint. Other than that, bot mode is great. I absolutely love the way this guy looks. An amazing shelf presence. In his alt mode, he looks good as well, but between the two modes, bot mode is definitely my favorite. The alt mode just feels like it's missing something. I don't know what. It's just a couple of areas where it looks literally like he's not filled out, and then just overall, it feels like he's missing something, but it's still a very admirable alt mode. But overall, I think this guy's really good. He's going to look good on your shelf. I'm going to give him an 8 out of 10. Moving on to the articulation for the figure, probably his weakest point here. So starting with the good, he's got all kinds of motion in his legs. I mean, he's got plenty of split, forward kick, back kick, thigh rotation, knee rotation, all that stuff is good. But then you start getting into the not so great, starting with that head. You can't tilt the head up or down or side to side or kind of that head tilt. It is literally just a left-right movement. So he's going to be scanning the horizon horizontally. That's it. No up, down. The arms are really funky because of that lack of bicep rotation. He has that forearm rotation, but it doesn't do a lot for you as far as the ability to pose this guy. I really, really miss that bicep rotation. And then his ankle tilt, he has it, but it's only a few degrees. So you're going to be limited here. Now, primarily, we know Shockwave kind of in this pose. He's not really an action-packed kind of guy. He just stands there and shoots. So I guess all that is good enough for that, but I do miss that articulation elsewhere. I would really enjoy putting him in some more dynamic poses, and just these limitations get in the way. So I'm going to give him a 7 out of 10 for articulation. Moving on to his accessories, it's the one and only accessory that Shockwave is known for. He's got a gun. It's on his hand, and it works. This is a big gun. It looks good. Again, it could use more paint, but I'm talking broken record at this point. So I will say the positives from this guy, absolutely looks great on his arm. I love the fact that it's ambidextrous. You can go right-handed, you could go left-handed, take your pick. Looks really good either way. So as far as that accessory goes, I'm going to give him an 8 out of 10. I think they did as close to a job of nailing it as they possibly could without putting more splashes of color on there. Moving on to quality, this is definitely one of his strongest points. I don't have any major issues with this guy. A majority of the joints are tight. He transforms the way that he should, comes with everything that he was supposed to. It does everything that the figure is supposed to do. I will say that my knee rotation joint on my left knee over here is a little bit on the loose side. I'm not sure what's going on there. I'm hoping it's an anomaly and that it's not something that is indicative across the board for all the Shockwaves. But overall quality is really good minus that. So I'm going to give him a 9 out of 10 on quality. Moving on to our value. This is our last bullet. I picked this guy up at a local Target here in North America for $35 US. I think for the MSRP, which is what that $35 is, I think this is a good figure. Of course, I would like to see the figures be less expensive, but the world we live in, $35 is what we pay for these, and I think you do get a good amount of value for the figure for that. The transformation is fun, intuitive. It's almost simplistic. I mean, there are a few little things here that are kind of complicated, but overall, I think people of all ages are going to be able to transform this guy and enjoy him. A lot of playability with this figure. And like I said earlier, just an overall really good shelf presence, especially in that bot mode. So I'm going to give him an 8 out of 10 for overall value. So that brings us to our grand total. Out of a possible 50 points, Studio Series Shockwave gets 80%. I'm not going to enthusiastically recommend this figure. I do notice that he seems to be kind of warming the shelves a lot, and I'm not entirely sure why. I know I was initially reluctant. This was not one that I pre-ordered. I wasn't super excited about him, but once I saw him in the store, he looked really good. I wanted to pick him up. So I hope that the word spreads on this guy that this is actually a pretty good figure for the money. So with that, that's going to wrap the review up. I hope you guys got some good information. I hope you got some entertainment out of this. And if you haven't already done so, be sure to hit that like button. Be sure to leave a comment if you feel like it. Subscribe to the channel. And please share this channel, share this video with anybody that might find interest in what we do here. It's always fun to see the community grow. So with that, until we see you guys in the next review, take care.